A shocking bombshell just exploded inside the palace. The York family could be erased, and it will leave you stunned. Lately, the British royal family has been rocked by leaked information suggesting that Sir Timothy Laurence, the calm husband of Princess Anne, may be the mastermind behind the slimmed-down monarchy plan, a blueprint rumored to completely sideline the House of York from the center of power. In the midst of this, Princess Beatrice, haunted by the fear of losing her status after her father's scandal, publicly challenged Timothy in a closed-door meeting, plunging the palace into an unprecedented wave of tension. From that moment, mysterious memos, shadowy handshakes, and clandestine encounters in dim corridors began to surface. Timothy chose silence, but everyone knew he was preparing a counterstrike. Beatrice, meanwhile, was being drawn ever deeper into the political game she herself had ignited. In a palace where loyalty is a mask for intrigue, only one question echoes: who is telling the truth and who will fall first? Deep within Buckingham Palace, where cold marble corridors echoed with footsteps, the atmosphere of that closed-door meeting hung heavy like a gathering storm. Crystal chandeliers cast light across the long oak table where royals and advisers sat in silence, eyes fixed on the documents before them. Princess Beatrice, her golden hair neatly tied back and her sharp blue eyes flashing, suddenly rose. Her voice was not loud, but it sliced through everyone's thoughts. "Sir Timothy, I oppose your proposal. This is not streamlining, it is deliberate exclusion." Sir Timothy Laurence, husband of Princess Anne, sat at the far end of the table, his face betraying no emotion. A former naval officer, he was accustomed to storms far fiercer than this. His gray eyes merely lifted slightly, but inside a quiet fury began to simmer. He had spent decades in loyal service to the crown, from his days as a lieutenant on warships to his current role as a discreet advisor on personnel matters. And now to be publicly accused by a young princess, the late Queen's granddaughter. Timothy clenched his fists beneath the table, but he chose silence. For now, silence was his sharpest weapon. 2 days earlier, an internal memo had been leaked, snapped covertly, and circulated through the palace's encrypted chat groups. It named Sir Timothy as the architect of a plan to reduce the number of working royals. The proposed cuts included the Duke of York, Andrew Beatrix's father. No one had expected a sensible proposal born of public pressure over costs and scandals to become the spark that ignited the blaze. Beatrice, reading the memo late that night in her private apartment at Kensington Palace, felt blood rush to her head. "He's pushing Dad and me to the margins," she whispered to herself, her hand trembling as she gripped a glass of red wine. The terror of losing status, privilege, and the spotlight her family once commanded kept her awake. Beatrice was not one to yield easily. As Andrew's eldest daughter, she had watched her father buried by the Epstein scandal. And now she was determined to defend what remained. In her mind, Timothy was no mere advisor. He was a manipulator, consolidating power for his wife's branch. Anne, the most active working royal, would benefit if the roster were trimmed. Beatrice pictured Timothy whispering in King Charles's ear, convincing him to discard liabilities like the Yorks. "No, I won't let this happen," she vowed, her eyes gleaming with resolve. The meeting ended in strained silence. Members filed out without daring to meet each other's gaze. The palace began to fracture into factions. On one side were the modernizers arguing that the monarchy needed to slim down to survive public scrutiny. "We cannot remain a relic of the past," a young advisor murmured to a colleague. On the other were the traditionalists clinging to the old order where every branch had its place. "This is heritage, not a corporation, An elderly aristocrat retorted. Rumors spread like a virus. Timothy was accused of ambition. Beatrice was hailed as the defender of family, but Timothy, returning to his apartment at Gatcombe Park, sat by the fireplace, puffing his pipe and thinking. He had indeed drafted the plan, but only under orders from above, not for personal gain. He felt sabotaged. Someone had deliberately leaked the memo to discredit him. Loyalty was his honor, and he would not let it be tarnished. The tide of suspicion swept through the palace. Secretaries whispered in corridors. Security tightened email checks. In her private study, Beatrice received an anonymous message. More evidence on Timothy. Stand by. She smiled, but deep down unease crept in. Had she gone too far, or was this merely the opening salvo in a real war? 3 days after the fateful meeting at Buckingham, the palace air remained thick as stale cigar smoke. Beatrice was no longer the smiling princess before the cameras. She was a woman devoured by the fear of losing her place. Spread before her were stacks of internal documents, copied emails, meeting minutes, handwritten notes, all circling the name Sir Timothy Laurence. "There has to be something," she muttered, her voice from sleepless nights. Her father, the Duke of York, had been crucified by the Epstein scandal. Now, if the working royals were called, her family would vanish from the stage entirely. Beatrice could not allow it. Honor to her was not just a title, it was survival. She decided to act. Her first target was Emily Hargrove, a junior secretary who had worked for Princess Anne. At 28, Emily burned with ambition, but had been stuck stamping documents for 3 years. Beatrice contacted her via encrypted message, arranging a meeting at Brown's Cafe in Mayfair, discreet paparazzi-free. She arrived in a camel, trench coat and a cap pulled low. Emily was 10 minutes late, eyes darting like a hunted rabbit. "Your Highness," she stammered, sliding into the opposite seat. Beatrice smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes. "Emily, I know you've seen what happens in Anne's office. The closed meetings, the deleted emails. I'm not forcing you, but if you help me, I'll secure you a senior assistant post with Princess Eugenie. One word from me can change your life." Emily swallowed hard. She remembered Timothy's orders to slash York branch budgets. His cold gaze as he said, "We must focus resources." Ambition overrode fear. "I have some handwritten notes," she whispered, sliding a small USB from her bag. "But now, if they find out, I'm finished." Beatrice placed a hand over hers, voice honey. "Sweet, no one will know. I'll protect you from there." Beatrice began collecting. Emily sent old emails, minutes, even screenshots of internal messages, but they weren't sharp enough. Beatrice needed a bombshell. Late at night in her private study, she and her trusted secretary Harold sat before the computer. Harold, 55, a former aide to Queen Elizabeth, was the only person Beatrice trusted completely. "We need a forged memo," Beatrice said, her voice trembling with excitement laced with guilt. Harold did not hesitate. They opened Timothy's original proposal, then edited it. They added a line, "Retain all key roles for the Anne branch. Eliminate York to mitigate public risk fallout." Timothy's signature was copied from an old document, the timestamp backdated by 2 days to match the earlier leak. Harold printed it on watermark. Royal stationery folded it like the real thing. Beatrice stared at the finished product, heart pounding. This is justice, she told herself. The plan unfolded with precision. Harold accidentally dropped the document during a budget meeting at St. James's Palace. As aides bent to retrieve it, a young advisor snapped a photo on his phone and shared it in the encrypted chat. The next morning, the palace erupted. "Timothy is manipulating," a secretary shouted in the tea room. "He wants to monopolize power for Anne." Traditionalists turned away. Even modernizers began to doubt Timothy's proposal. His reputation plummeted like a stock after a scandal. At Gatcombe Park, Timothy received the news by phone, his face darkening. He sat alone by the fireplace, gripping a whiskey glass. Who did this? He asked himself, voice low as a submarine's sonar ping. But he remained publicly silent, quietly taking notes. Beatrice, monitoring from afar through her sources, smiled in triumph. She hugged her father in a private meeting at Royal Lodge. Andrew, weary-faced, patted her shoulder. "Well done, Bea. Now they'll have to reconsider." But joy was fleeting. That night, Beatrice dreamed of Timothy, standing at the end of a long corridor, his gray eyes cold. She woke drenched in sweat. Will he strike back? She wondered, hand shaking as she reached for water. The palace was now a shattered hive. Rumors leaked to friendly press, though not yet public. Beatrice felt the weight of power. It was not always clean, but she was willing to trade honor to protect her family, whatever the cost. Sir Timothy Laurence was not a man ruled by emotion. In his study at Gatcombe Park, where old naval charts hung on the walls and medals lay silent in glass cases, he sat ramrod straight, eyes scanning his laptop like radar, sweeping for submarines. The forged memo had spread through the palace like a virus. His name was dragged through corridors, chat groups, and suspicious glances. But Timothy did not rage publicly. He had learned on destroyers, the greatest storms begin with eerie calm. This was no accident, he said to himself. He opened a self-made Excel file. First column labeled leak source. Second, edit timestamps. Using his senior advisor privileges, he requested IT logs from the Royal Department citing security review post-leak. Within 24 hours, data poured in. His original file had been accessed at 2:17 a.m. Tuesday, edited 3 times, then exported in a new format. Someone with a level of clearance, Timothy noted, fingers tapping the desk. Only 15 people in the palace had that access. He began cross-checking, first meeting sign-in logs. The forged signature, laser-printed, ink mismatched with official printers. The forger had used a personal machine. Digital footprints could not be erased. He sent samples to an old Ministry of Defense contact, now a digital forensics expert. Results came in 3 hours. HP laser jet printer, 3rd floor Clarence House, registered to Harold Whitmore, Princess Beatrix's secretary. Timothy did not jump to conclusions. He needed witnesses. Next was Marcus Tate, his personal secretary of 7 years. Marcus was loyal but lately avoided eye contact. Timothy arranged a meeting at the King's Arms pub in Gloucestershire, where no one noticed 2 men in dark coats. They sat in a dim corner, 2 untouched ales before them. "Marcus," Timothy began, voice no louder than the rain outside, "I don't like games. Who instructed you to alter the file?" Marcus palled, his ale glass trembled. "Sir, I didn't mean." Timothy placed a steady hand on his shoulder, light but firm as an anchor. "You have a family. I don't want you ruined. Just tell the truth." Marcus swallowed. "An anonymous internal email. They said it was a minor clarification of your intent. I thought it came from Princess Beatrix's secretarial team. They promised a promotion if I cooperated." Timothy nodded expressionless. He recorded the conversation on a phone hidden in his pocket, then erased all traces. "Go home. No one will know Marcus left." Shoulders shaking, Timothy lingered alone, watching the rain. He remembered Beatrice as a child, 10 years old, laughing at her royal picnic as he told sea stories. Now she was his adversary. A flicker of sadness passed, quickly replaced by discipline. "She's been pulled in," he thought, "but I must defend honor, mine and the crown's." He dug deeper. Using old MI5 contacts, he requested email chain analysis. The anonymous address traced to a Clearance House server. IP log at 2003-144. Timothy needed no direct proof. He had the logic chain. Emily supplied raw data. Harold forged. Marcus edited calculated leak. A 3-tier attack. That night he did not sleep. He sat by the fireplace, pipe smoke curling, sketching a battle plan on paper. "She thinks silence is weakness," he murmured. "But silence is when the warship reloads." He decided no public confrontation. He would let Beatrice dig deeper, then pull her out with the truth. The palace remained chaotic. Traditionalists held secret meetings backing Beatrice. Modernizers distanced themselves from Timothy, but in the shadows, the naval officer was ready to counter-strike. News of Timothy's covert investigation reached Beatrice like an anonymous text. "He's asking about Harold. Be careful." She read it over and over on her phone, fingers ice cold despite the roaring fire in her Clarence House study. Harold, the man who printed the forged memo, only one who knew the full plan, was now the weakest link. Beatrice paced the Persian rug, heart drumming. "If he gets to Harold, everything collapses," she whispered. Chandelier light highlighted the dark circles under her eyes. 3 nights without sleep. Fear of losing status had morphed into fear of prison. Harold was summoned immediately. He arrived pale, suit rumpled. "Your Highness, I deleted all printer traces," he said, voice quavering. Beatrice cut him off. "Are you sure? Timothy is no amateur. He hunted submarines." Harold swallowed. "I may have left a temp file in the digital recycle bin." Beatrice whirled, eyes blazing. "Delete it now. And from now on, no emails, no texts, face-to-face only." Harold nodded frantically and fled. But Beatrice's new defense was not enough. She needed a preemptive strike. The idea struck at 3:00 a.m. over black coffee. Publicly demand a review of all senior royal advisors, citing transparency after the leak. On the surface, it was noble, fitting her image as a progressive young princess. In reality, it was a trap. Force Timothy out of the Personnel Coordination Council, his gateway to all files. Refuse the review, and he looked manipulative. Accept, and he lost control. The next morning, Beatrice sent a formal letter to the royal household. She chose her words carefully. "To safeguard the British monarchy's reputation with the public, I propose an independent committee to re-evaluate the roles of all senior advisors, including Sir Timothy Laurence." Copies went to King Charles, Princess Anne, and 5 council members. Beatrice sat in her study, hands clasped, awaiting fallout. Her phone buzzed incessantly. A young advisor. "Bold move, Your Highness. Traditionalists support another from a close source." Timothy read it. He said nothing at Gatcombe Park. Timothy received the letter via secure email. He printed it, reading each line under his desk lamp. "Transparency," he repeated, voice laced with irony. He saw the gambit instantly. Beatrice wanted to force him to justify himself while she played innocent. Timothy set the letter down, fingers drumming the oak desk. He had enough evidence. Harold's temp file. Marcus's confession, the IP chain, but it was not yet time to deploy. "She's gambling," he thought, "and she doesn't know she's sitting on a mine." An emergency meeting was called in the green room, Buckingham Palace. Just 4 people: King Charles, Princess Anne, Timothy, and Beatrice. No secretaries, no minutes. Charles sat at the head, face gaunt from chemotherapy. Beatrice explained, the king said, voice. Beatrice drew a breath, tone sweet but firm. "Uncle, the leak has damaged trust. We need full transparency. No exceptions. Sir Timothy surely agrees, doesn't he?" She met Timothy's gaze, smile light, but eyes defiant. Timothy was silent for 5 seconds, long enough for the heir to turn to lead. Anne gripped his hand under the table. Then he spoke, voice steady as the tide. "I support transparency, but the committee must be truly independent, free from any branch his influence." He looked at Beatrice, his gaze conveying, "I know your game." A chill ran down her spine. She had expected fear. Instead, he was close to unraveling her entire web. The meeting ended in tension. Charles approved the committee, but named Timothy co-chair. An unexpected move. Beatrice left the room, legs unsteady. Harold waited in the corridor, whispering, "Your Highness." He just asked it to recover the temp file. Beatrice cut him off. "Abort Plan B, we retreat." But inside, she knew the gambit had backfired. She had bet everything to protect her family. Now the family might be dragged into the abyss. That night, Beatrice stood at her Clarence House window, watching London's lights flicker. She recalled her father's warning. Power is a double-edged sword, B. She had grasped the blade, and now blood was flowing. Early morning, Sir Timothy Laurence stepped down from a black Range Rover, his naval coat brushing his knees. No insignia, no medals. He had chosen 5:30 a.m., when even guards yawned. When security cameras switched to power save, the east garden of the castle, where Queen Elizabeth once walked her corgis, now held only rustling leaves, and the heartbeat of a man about to face truth. Emily Harrove arrived 7 minutes late. Gray sweater, scarf pulled high, eyes red from crying. Timothy skipped pleasantries. He pointed to a stone bench beneath the largest oak, beyond the reach of faint castle floodlights. "Sit, Emily. Patrol rounds again in 10 minutes. We don't have long." His voice was not harsh, but cold enough to make her shiver. Not from the wind. Emily sat, hands knotted in her lap. "Sir, I didn't mean." Timothy raised a hand gently. "I don't need apologies. I need the truth, all of it." He placed a thick brown envelope on the bench. Inside were printed emails, Harold's undid temp file, and Marcus' confession transcript. 2 choices: tell me here or tell the committee with Crown lawyers. Emily stared at the envelope, then at Timothy. His eyes held no anger, only the weariness of a man who had seen too many battles. She began to cry silently. It wasn't Princess Beatrice who gave direct orders. She whispered, voice breaking. It was Mr. Crow, Deputy Chief of Staff, Budget Projects. He told me if York and Anne fought, next year's budget would be easier to divide. He promised me a grade 3 promotion if I helped. Timothy did not move. He had suspected Crow 2 days earlier after spotting odd transfers from contingency funds to the man's personal accounts. "What did Crow tell Beatrice?" he asked. Emily wiped tears with the back of her hand. Just that there was proof Timothy wanted York gone. She believed it because she was terrified. Terrified her father would vanish completely. Harold forged the document on Crow's orders, then had me pass it to Marcus for editing. Beatrice didn't know the details. Wind gusted, swirling golden leaves onto Timothy's shoulder. He picked one, twirling it between his fingers. "Anyone else?" Emily shook her head. "Just the 4 of us." Crow said he'd pin it all on Beatrice if exposed. Timothy nodded slowly. He produced a small USB from his inner pocket. "This records our talk. Keep it. If Crow contacts you, play it for him. Then disappear from London for 2 weeks. I'll arrange leave." Emily took the drive, hands trembling. "Sir, what will you do with Princess Beatrice?" Timothy gazed toward the castle, where King Charles's bedroom light had just gone out. "I'll give her a chance to fix it herself. But first, I need to see Crow." Meanwhile, at Clarence House, Beatrice paced her bedroom. Harold had called at 4:00 a.m. Crow canceled the meeting. He said, "Things are complicated." Beatrix's throat went dry. She poured cognac but did not drink. She recalled Timothy's look in the green room, not anger, but disappointment. "I went too far," she whispered. Her phone buzzed, anonymous text, "East Garden, Windsor, 5:45, alone, no signature, but she knew." Beatrice arrived 15 minutes late, jogging through wet grass, cashmere coat damp with dew. Timothy stood beneath the oak. Emily was gone, only him and an empty bench. "Sit, Beatrice," he said, voice soft as breeze. She sat, hands clasped. "I know everything," Timothy began. "It's not entirely your fault. Crow exploited your fear." Beatrice bowed her head, tears falling onto the leaf-strewn ground. "I only wanted to protect Dad." Timothy placed a hand on her shoulder, the first in years. "I understand. I once defended my ship at any cost, but some battles aren't worth fighting." He briefed her on Crow, the budget, the divide and conquer scheme. Beatrice listened, face ashen. "I'll withdraw the review proposal," she said. Timothy shook his head. "No, keep it, but amend it. The committee will investigate all budget sources, including Crow's projects. I'll supply evidence. You'll emerge the hero, not the victim." Beatrice looked up, eyes blurred with tears. "Why help me?" Timothy smiled for the first time that week. "Because I promised Queen Elizabeth I'd keep this family whole. And because you remind me of the daughter I never had." They rose together. Mist began to lift. Dawn peeked behind the castle tower. Timothy walked Beatrice to the side gate where her driver waited. Before entering the car, she turned. "Sir Timothy, I'm sorry." He nodded. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to yourself, and next time fight with the truth." The car rolled away. Timothy lingered beneath the oak, watching until the tail lights vanished. He dialed an old number. "Crow, my office, 800, no lawyer." Then he hung up and walked toward the castle. Beneath his feet, oak leaves fell like the fragments of a shattered plot. Early November morning, Buckingham Palace was so silent, the distant chime of Big Ben could be heard. No reporters, no cameras, not even the whisper of corridor staff. Only 4 people in the green room. King Charles Roman III at the head of the oak table, face hollow from illness, but eyes sharp. Princess Anne to his right, hands clasped. Sir Timothy Laurence to his left, a thick brown envelope before him, and Princess Beatrice standing behind a chair, afraid to sit, hands trembling behind her back. Timothy spoke first voice, even as dawn tide. "Your Majesty, I will present the full matter in 10 minutes. Then you decide." He placed 3 items on the table. The USB of Emily's recorded confession, printouts of Crow's email chain, and records of irregular budget transfers. No excess words, no dramatic gestures. He recounted the forged memo. Harold Marcus Emily then paused at Alastair Crow, the man who had used Beatrix fear to manipulate a £42 million royal project budget. Charles listened without interruption. Anne gripped her husband's hand under the table, eyes red but dry. Beatrice kept her head bowed, hair veiling half her face. When Timothy finished, the room was silent enough to hear dry leaves scrape the window. Charles spoke first, voice rasping from treatment, but regal. "Beatrice, what do you have to say?" She lifted her head, eyes wet but steady. "Uncle, I was wrong. I feared losing Dad, losing everything. So I let Crow guide me. I didn't forge the document myself, but I enabled it. I accept responsibility." Her voice cracked at the end, but she did not sob. She had cried enough the night before. Timothy continued gently. "Your Majesty, Princess Beatrice is not the source. She is a victim of a larger scheme. Public exposure would tear the York branch apart again. I propose handle internally, dismiss Crow, reassign him to a powerless post in Scotland. The review committee will be co-chaired by Beatrice, publicly investigating budgets, turning error into transparent victory." Anne looked at her husband, then at Beatrice. She remembered her own 30s, battered by press over divorce. She nodded slowly. "Timothy is right. This family has endured enough scandal. Charles was silent a minute, gazing out the window where sunrise glowed behind the Elizabeth Tower. Then he placed a hand on the table, voice low but decisive. "Crow is dismissed today. Beatrice, you will lead the Budget Review Committee under Timothy's oversight. No one outside this room learns details. Beatrice, you will write a private apology to Timothy and Anne." "Timothy, thank you." Beatrice bowed deeper. "Uncle, I will." Timothy said only one sentence, looking straight at her. "Let no one beyond these walls know. Royal honor lies not in loud voices, but in silence." At the right moment, the meeting ended in 15 minutes. No handshakes, no embraces, only a slight nod between Timothy and Beatrice. An unspoken pact. That afternoon, Alistair Crow was summoned to the royal household office. He entered with a confident smile, emerged 20 minutes later, ghostly pale. No lawsuits, no press, just a brief internal memo. Mr. Crow retires early for health reasons. His assets were audited. 1. £2 million in external consultant was reclaimed. He boarded a train to Edinburgh that evening, no luggage. Beatrice returned to Clarence House at dusk. She sat alone in her study, writing by hand on crested royal stationery. "Sir Timothy, Lady Anne, I let fear eclipse honor. I am sorry for doubting and hurting you. I will use my committee role to make amends, not to conceal. Thank you for giving me a second chance, Beatrice." She folded the letter, sealed it with red wax, and had her driver deliver it to Gatcombe Park. No email, no copies. Timothy received it late that night. He sat by the fireplace, reading by firelight. Anne stood behind, hand on his shoulder. "She'll be all right," she said. Timothy nodded, sliding the letter into a drawer with his old naval medals. "She has learned the costliest lesson. True power lies in composure, not in shouting." Outside, London sank into night fog. No one knew whether the Yorks would be cut from the working royals list. No one knew a young secretary was on leave in Cornwall, or that a once powerful official now lived in a small Edinburgh flat. Only that Sir Timothy Laurence remained in his advisor's seat, silent as the embodiment of discipline and loyalty. The storm had passed, leaving the palace quieter but stronger. Was Beatrix spreading of rumors, an attempt to ruin Sir Timothy's reputation, merely an ambition for power, or an act born of terror at being cast out of the world into which she was born? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.